Just to introduce myself, I'm Natalie. I'm the Alumni Volunteer Manager here at King's. So you have joined our How To series for the Get the Most from Mentoring. Just so you know, not many of you may be aware that our How To series was created to really help students and alumni who are in the early stages of career development. But it's also relevant for alumni as well who are looking to make a career change. We've never done a how-to series on mentoring before. So really the purpose of this session today is to just inform you, hopefully empower you to be a bit more proactive, and also just to make the most of anything mentoring related that we have going on at King's. It's not just me this evening. I'm being joined by my colleagues, Simran and Ray, who are online, but very much in the background, but will be helping with letting you guys into this session, as well as facilitating Q&A, which we'll do later as part of this session. We will be, as part of the follow-up email, we will be sending you the link to our how-to YouTube channel as well, so you're welcome in your own time to watch other episodes there, and hopefully find inspiration from that as well. So it won't be just me speaking this evening. I will kickstart by just talking about mentoring, and then I will be introducing our speakers who are mentors and a previous mentee, if she can hopefully join us, so that we can give you a chance to hear from them directly, their experiences, and give you the opportunity to ask them questions as well. So just to kickstart, what is mentoring? Now, mentoring has a lot of definitions, but this is probably one of my favorite ones. So mentoring really, when it comes down to it, it's a supportive learning relationship between a caring individual who shares knowledge, experience, and wisdom with another individual who's ready and willing to benefit from this exchange to enrich their professional journey. So just to clarify, mentoring is different to coaching, and I will go into detail with that in the next slide. But just so you know, coaching is much more performance-driven, and it's designed to improve a professional's on-the-job performance in a very short period of time, whereas mentoring is much more development-driven and takes a more holistic approach to you as an individual. So it's not just focusing on work, but it's also focusing on your personal life as well. So it ends up, in my opinion, being a bit more meaningful in certain instances than coaching. Right, so what is the difference between coaching and mentoring? Now, this slide was kindly shared with me, provided by Oxford Brookes. They actually have an international centre for coaching and mentoring studies. But as you can already see, there's quite a difference between the two. Of course, there's a bit of overlap between the two. But yes, the main thing that we do offer here at King's is mentoring. And we find that works really well for students, especially just because it really helps, and also with recent grads, you know, to get that sense of commonality. You get to really build that sense of rapport with a mentor, especially if you've got things in common. It's very much developmental, and it can really take shape in different ways, but tends to be somewhat on the semi-formal vibe, I would say, as far as the mentoring opportunities we have at King's. And just to know, I will be talking more about the mentoring opportunities we have, so that you know what you can take advantage of, as far as our offering goes here at King's. So what are the benefits of mentoring? Having a mentor can help you develop and strengthen your existing leadership qualities and refine your soft skills to launch or further your career. Can help you understand the professional world of the sector you've chosen or wish to enter. Can help you reflect on your existing experience and motivate you to reach your full potential. Improve your self-awareness and discover new ways of thinking and courage to take risks. learn from years of work experience and wisdom to help you make better decisions. And importantly, and not to overlook, this bit is to grow your network of contacts. Now, with this in mind, we can focus in terms of the mentoring pathways that we have at King's. So some of you may be on our leadership mentoring program. So this is where we hand match ambitious undergrads and postgrad students with alumni for a 6-month career mentoring journey. And this tends to be a mixture of virtual or hybrid, depending on where your mentor is and where you're based as well. So that's going to kickstart in the new year. We also run something called Let's Chat, which we've done a few times now. So Let's Chat is very much a one-off mentoring conversation that we tend to run on our online community called King's Connect. And for any of you that aren't aware, King's Connect is our online global King's community. We have more than 32,000 users on the platform at the moment. It's very much a networking platform at the moment, but we are trying to focus more of it to be a mentoring platform and encourage and facilitate one-off mentoring chats. So please do keep an eye out on that, especially next year, as we hope to be piloting this more. So it's essentially a one-off. We would match you with a person in the industry you're interested in learning more about, and then you, between yourselves, can find a time, usually within a month, to have that mentoring conversation. So it's a really great initiative. It's been really popular so far. So please do keep an eye out for that. Not many people are aware of it. It does exist. And the way to be in the know is to actually be part of the King's Connect platform. So again, a copy of these slides will be shared with you, so you will have all this information to hand after the end of this session. Something as well, this may be more relevant at the moment for our law students. We actually do, the law school do run a group mentoring program where, again, it's matching a couple of law students with a law professional. And the benefit of this is it's not one-to-one mentoring, but more receiving mentoring support with your peers with a professional mentor, and it's usually across a 3-month-long cycle. Again, if you're interested in finding more about that, do let us know. And again, we can share more information in the follow-up emails, so you have all that information to hand. But just to add, mentoring is becoming increasingly popular, and we're doing what we can to ensure that you have the information and the tools you need to make the most of mentoring at King's. And something I will push out there for anyone that is on King's Connect or not yet on King's Connect, a tip that I would share with you all, if you are seeking to get mentoring support, if you are going to go on King's Connect, you can use our directory, and on this directory you can filter by industry or subject of study. And if you happen to find an alum that is willing to help, please don't be afraid to reach out to them to ask for their support. But the one trick I would advise that you do is, rather than asking for an hour of the time, simply put, I'm looking to have 5 minutes of your time. And that tends to work pretty well, especially if you are contacting an alum that is pretty senior and may be strapped for time. So always, that's a top tip for me. Go with the 5-minute trick, see if that works, and then permitting you are able to have that meeting and that conversation with them. From there, then you can look to have slightly longer meetings and follow-ups, and that tends to work in a nicer, more organic way. So if you haven't yet done that, do consider doing that, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there and to ask help from our alumni. Our alumni are surprisingly supportive and willing to help, but it's really down to you to really put yourself out there and make the ask. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Our alumni are more than willing to help you, is the end of what I'm trying to get at. Right, so with that all in mind, I will now move on to introducing our guest speakers, and then I'll stop sharing my slides for a bit so that we can see people's faces. So our guest speakers. We're very fortunate this evening to have mentors, some of our great mentors and a previous mentee who hopefully is able to join us online. So I'd like to introduce you all to Nevin, to Tamana and Yael. So Nevin and Tamana have been mentors here at King's for quite some time and have mentored in different ways. Tamana has mentored as well via the King's Business School as well. And Kevin, as you probably saw at the beginning, that was a picture of him from our recent King's Connect mentoring meetup, which is a biannual event we run where we invite students and recent grads to get mentoring support from our alumni back on campus. So that went pretty well, and we hope to run the next one next year. So keep an eye out for that if you are interested. So Nevin works as a marketing effectiveness manager at Nationwide Building Society. Tamana works at PwC in finance, change controls and risk advisory. And Yael was a mentee on our most recent cycle of our leadership mentoring program, which, if you may recall, is our 6-month-long mentoring career-focused program. So with that in mind, I will stop sharing my screen and we can get the conversation started with our guest speakers this evening. So welcome to the floor. Hi, Nevin, Tamana, and Yael. Yes, I see you online. Great. Great to have you online. Right. So it would be great to have you all here to really just get a sense for what your experience has been like as an alumni mentor and what you have found has worked well when you have engaged with mentees to really make the most of the time that you have together. As I'm sure you are aware, we do have quite a lot of people online at the moment, and I'm sure they'd be interested to potentially learn more about what they could do to really make the most of the opportunities that we have at King's. But before we get into that, Nevin, I was hoping to start with you. Would you be happy to share some of your experiences as an alumni mentor and what you found that's sort of, do you have any highlights to share, especially when it comes to the mentoring exchanges that you've had with mentees in the past?
Of course. Thanks so much, Natalie, and thanks everyone for letting me join today. It's it's always a pleasure to be back at King's, albeit virtually in the way that we are. So in answer to your question, I found mentoring really rewarding. I wish I had, I took as a mentee when I was an undergraduate, just like you guys on the call. So I'm a graduate of 2015. I studied maths, and my background of being, mentoring the mentee is it was such a rewarding experience. We try to be very proactive in terms of how we structure our meetings. So of course, as Natalie alluded to, the onus is on our students, the mentees, to sort of really own the agenda and be proactive. We can give a bit of guidance and we can give a bit of structure to that. But I think the key part from a mentor, a real differentiator to what Natalie alluded to earlier, is you have to be quite an attentive listener. So it's more listening and encouraging the mentee to find the solution to themselves rather than directing them to say, okay, this is what you have to, this is right or wrong. Because in any case, what was right or wrong for you may not work for them. And your objective is really to try and encourage them to say, okay, this is the information that's out there, or this is how I could potentially signpost you to something, or this is how I'd encourage you to think this through and go from there, really. So I think the key thing that I took from it is you have to be it's a good case of practicing your listening skills and really encouraging your mentee to take ownership of the meetings. That said, I think there's no harm in having some sort of structure, and I think the alumni office gave some great resources and packs on how we do that, and I found that worked really well. So I encourage my mentee to set SMART goals so that we are able to have a fixed agenda item for each meeting. So in our case, and it works differently for whichever person, but for us, we had sort of monthly catch-ups. We try to do some, you can always do this face to face, or at the time it was virtual. Really, we had a set. I encourage my mentee to really have a set goal of, what are your SMART goals? What do you want to get out of this mentoring relationship? And then really the onus is, okay, and are we holding you to that? So how, my role is to, in an informal way, to see how you're progressing against those goals. So we spoke through a range of activities throughout our sort of mentoring time, and I can go into more detail for those in the call who are interested, but at a very high level, we did a range of activities. So one was sort of looking at your CV review. We did some mock interviews as well. What my mentee found most beneficial was that industry experience. So I've worked in the financial services for a couple of years, and that was something that she was trying to break into. So offering that sort of this is what is expected, or this is how you get up to speed with industry knowledge, is very invaluable. And I cannot stress enough how important it is in terms of researching the company, or knowing about the company, or just knowing the industry itself, because you could pose all sorts of questions really. So it's a great boon. Hope that answers your
Great.
question.
Thank you, Nevin. That was great. And just for anyone who isn't aware what a SMART goal is, so SMART goal stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And they're really a great way to provide a sense of structure, especially when you have limited time with your mentor and you're trying to be as productive as you can. So setting SMART goals is really great because it gives you a sense of direction, and you can then keep track of that with the support of a mentor. So you know that when you're going off track, they can sort of encourage you to ensure that you get back on track. So if you're not aware of that, do look it up on Google. But yes, it's really worth keeping that in mind as part of if you want to make the sort of get that or continue to develop on your professional path. From Kings to beyond Kings. So it's really worth keeping that in mind. I appreciate some of you, or most of you may already know that, but I'm just putting that out there for anyone that isn't aware. Okay, so thank you, Nevin. Moving on to Mana. When it came to sort of your mentoring experiences, what did you find worked well? Did you experience any challenges at all with any of the mentees that you've had? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Sure, thanks, Natalie. I guess just to give a bit of background to how I ended up here. So I joined King's as a master's student in 2018, and I was an international student, and I just had the 1 year to actually figure out what I wanted to do with my life and how I wanted to go about it in terms of looking for jobs and things like that. And being completely candid, I never actually made use of any of the King's resources when it came to mentoring. So kudos to everyone who's on this call, because you've taken the right first step. And it's only once I actually started mentoring and once I got into my job did I realize the actual value of having someone who's looking out for you, who can provide you with a bit of direction and can guide you in terms of what is best for you. And in terms of, I guess, challenges that I faced with my mentees, I think a lot of the times as students reaching out to maybe someone who's more senior or someone who's an alumni, we can tend to get a little bit nervous in terms of what should I actually say to them, how candid should I be with them in terms of the challenges that I'm facing. And I think one of the things I realized was that mentees are not always completely honest with you in terms of the breadth of, I guess, support that they might need from you. So I think the first piece of advice I would give is to be completely honest with your mentor as to what support you actually need from them, because we're all here to help you. So just make sure that you come prepared when you go into these mentoring sessions, or when you set up your first introduction with your mentor as to exactly what you need support with, because this will help you get more comfortable with your mentor, and also help your mentor understand where they can support you and help build that rapport as your relationship develops. So I think that was the first challenge I experienced, but I think I worked with my mentees in order to get over that. And then secondly, when you actually start developing your mentoring relationship and you've had a few sessions, I think it's very important to kind of stay true to the goals. Like, for example, Nevin mentioned the SMART goals. I think it's very important to abide by any goals that you're setting at the start of your relationship. Obviously, priorities change and things like that, but always just let your mentor know that that's what, if your priorities have changed, or if you're not looking for any specific job or something like that. And yeah, just keep aligned to your goals, I think, because that way your mentor will also be aware of how they can help you.
That's great. Thanks, Tamana. Something that's really insightful. Something I found as well, I think the reason why a lot of students seek mentoring support is they find that at times there's a bit of a gap in their sort of industry insights that they get. So they may be covered on the academic forefront, but actually when it comes to getting the latest inside scoop on actual what it's like to work in a specific industry, this is where mentors can be a huge asset, because they're giving that unique insight that they may not otherwise get outside of that mentoring connection. Have you found, and again, I'm happy to put this out to Nevin as well, that you've become like, do you find that as a mentor, you are a professional sounding board for mentees, that they are comfortable with sort of asking you questions that they may not otherwise ask their professor, because they're really keen to sort of just get a real understanding of what it's like working beyond the confined, outside of a seminar or a lecture, just to get a real perspective in terms of what it's like to be a working professional. I'm just thinking about whether, have you ever felt that you have become a professional sounding board for ideas or thoughts, or from your mentee who just want to get that to get your thoughts really on whether what they're thinking is on the right track, or if they've got concerns about something or questions that they feel like they can come to you for that. Have you really felt that you've become a professional sounding board in any sort of capacity at all? Nevin, let's start with you.
I wasn't sure who you're going to go to. I think certainly from my perspective, it comes down to yes, from my perspective, I would say yes, that is your goal in terms of being a sounding board. So to what I said earlier, I was saying that to be a mentor, it's all about being able to listen and being able to not necessarily direct, but encourage the mentee to come up with the answer themselves. And your role is to be that sounding board, to say, okay, have you, we tend to have sort of prompting questions. Say, have you considered this, or what happens if you do that? It's not a case of you should do this or you should do that. That's on, everyone's got their own opinions, they've got their own decisions. So and so that's what we'd encourage. And I think being upfront about that from at the beginning of your mentoring relationship, your first meeting, is very key. Whether we do this, I've done this mentoring in other capacities as well. And I think having a sort of establishing what are the ground rules, what will this mentoring relationship cover, what won't it cover, how does it differ to coaching, and what it is. So being a sounding board definitely is clear for that. And I think the onus is, of course, I mentioned, the onus is on the mentee, but I think it's also our part is not only just to be able to be a active listener, but it's also to build up that rapport. So for them to be able to trust you, or to talk about to be completely open to Tamana's point earlier about potentially there are barriers about not being able to be completely open when you have different priorities. That happens, and whether you're a student or whether you're in the world of work, that there's always changing priorities, and it's really clear to have that, building that rapport at the beginning, at the outset, so that you are able to build that credibility to be a sounding board. So when you have your formal sessions or when you have your informal, you can always reach out to, the way I presented to my mentee was, I'm available if you need anything outside of our mentoring sessions, just drop me a line and go for it. And that's the relationship you need to try and build up. And I think that's key to having a sort of successful mentoring out of it.
Great, thanks, Nevin. Tamana, is there anything you'd like to add to what Nevin has shared there?
Yes, I think so, Natalie. I think to your first point about, have I felt felt that I can be a sounding board. I think just given the profession and the industry I work in consulting, which is such a vague profession. If you just, say consulting, it can mean so many different things to different people based on the kind of work that you do. So I think with my mentees specifically, I've had them approach me just to ask, what exactly is it that you do, or what is it like to work in a consulting firm or consulting environment? And I feel like I've been able to give them that insight in terms of, how varied the work is, and just like the benefits of working in this kind of industry. And I feel like that's been both beneficial to them and also beneficial to me, just to be able to see that I'm able to help them understand whether that is the career path they want to go down or not. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Tamara. I appreciate that. Now I'm going to add Yal, our previous mentee, onto the chat. Hi, Yal. So everyone, Yal was a previous mentee on our leadership mentoring program. Figured this would be a great opportunity not just to hear from Nevin and Tamana, but also from Yal as a previous mentee, and for her to share her experience as well, having Patrick as a mentor. So Yal, I guess it feels organic to add on to what Nevin and Tamana were sharing there. As your experience as a mentee, have you felt that you were able to have Patrick as your mentor? Did you ever see him as a professional sounding board at all? By that I mean, were you able to sort of feel comfortable enough to ask him questions that you wouldn't really feel that would work for, say, a professor, because it's very much industry related or business related? How was your experience with Patrick as a mentor? It'd be great to hear from you.
It's great to be back, especially now to share like the positive experience I had on the program. And because when I first saw it, it looked like a brilliant opportunity. And now having gone through it, I can very much recommend it to any other people who are thinking of doing it. With Patrick, I had a very, very positive experience since, like you said, Natalie, sometimes when speaking to a professor, you still have to keep like a certain boundary in place, and there's like certain topics you wouldn't feel comfortable bringing up because it's very related to like an academic essay that you would discuss with them, and like that's sort of that. But with Patrick, I could ask him about his journey, like what led him from studying history at King's to starting his own company, and it was very inspiring how he told me how he started it out of his bedroom, and it just grew to now over 50 employees. And that provided like a very tangible example of what's possible, especially as an entrepreneur, which you don't have that sort of perspective or that relationship with the teacher from King's when you're just learning sort of very academic modules. And it was interesting as well to relate to what Nevin and Tamana said, since, for example, what Nevin said about the industry experience and how beneficial that is. I can very much relate to that because seeing Patrick, who's worked for over 10 years now in building up his own company, it's experience that just learning about like an entrepreneurial module at King's, like I wouldn't have been able to get that same perspective. So it was really beneficial, especially with like the business plan that I had in mind, to get Patrick's perspective on it and hear what he thought about it, and his feedback about how like it's really important to, before I start the project, to get my prospective clients and just sort of send out like try and get feedback based on like what they think and how I can iterate it and improve it before I actually start. So I think that industry experience is definitely a huge plus that it's hard to get otherwise, and especially even like let's say if you cold contact someone on LinkedIn from a company, it's usually let's say an hour call or like a half an hour call, and that's basically more or less it. But this, because it's meant to be like a few meetings, you really have that possibility to build up a relationship. And it was actually quite like it was formal but also casual, so that I felt comfortable with Patrick to talk to him about like my goals for the future and the different careers I was thinking of pursuing. And apart from my side project, like apart from my like business project, it was really helpful to hear his perspective and all that. And then related to what Tamana was saying, I definitely agree that like it's really helpful when that for the mentee to be very honest with a mentor and not to sort of put on a show or pretend. and just to say things as they are, because I mean, I think number one, that builds the rapport a lot more, and that they feel that they also can like you more and engage in the conversations. But as well for the mentee, like that's what ultimately helps. So for example, I was looking at a certain point for a venture capital or like an internship in that sort of field, and Patrick, I asked him if he could put me in touch with people, because during one of our sessions he said how he's got a lot of friends in these industries. So apart from just benefiting from Patrick's wisdom and his experiences, it was also helpful because you get connections with people who are, let's say, 10 years out of university and have a lot of connections who they could put you in touch with as well. So I met two of his friends as well, which were helpful connections, and it was valuable speaking with them. So yeah, on the whole, I would say like it's a extremely valuable experience from multiple perspectives.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's really great to hear that you were able to, you had a safe space to build that rapport with Patrick, and hopefully felt more comfortable and confident as you progress throughout the sessions. I guess something it would just be, and that's a really valid point I'd like to put out there as well, is some mentors are happy to connect you with professionals in their wider network, especially if there's a specific area that they're not familiar with, but they have a colleague in the same company that may be able to give further insights. They may be happy enough to try and facilitate that for you. But again, if you don't ask, you may not get. So don't feel afraid to ask. Ultimately, I guess. Yeah, before I guess we move on to Q&A, do you have any other top tips for our students and recent grads out here that may not have made the most of mentoring or have never had a mentor before? Based on your experience, do you have any top tips for them that might hopefully inspire them to be a bit more proactive?
So I think maybe that to think when they sign up, like what they're trying to get out of this. So I guess for some people, it's, let's say in Tamanna's case, like the mentees are signing up to find out maybe more about consulting and to benefit from like her and Evan's like what industry experience. For me, it was more specifically, I had a business idea and I was looking for someone who also had started their own business and who can help me and give me advice. And even though my idea was for like the wellness industry and Patrick's in the arts sector, it was still very, very applicable. So yeah, I would say like have an idea that you're passionate about, or like have a goal that you're trying to get out of this program, because that way Natalie can also partner you up with a mentor who would be most suitable for that. And I think, let's say in my case, it was a spot on match, and like I really, apart from like benefiting, like it was super enjoyable as well. It was like a huge highlight as well. And then I would say another tip would be to be invested in the relationship and be proactive in setting up meetings and being like friendly and engaging and trying to like listen to your mentor and hear more about their journey, because it's extremely interesting, but also there's a lot to learn from that. And then I think lastly, just to enjoy it, because it like all my sessions, like it was enjoyable, like we laughed as well. It's not like a sort of serious heavy meeting, like business meeting. As much as you're learning, at the same time, like you're enjoying and like you're building a relationship with someone, and you're lucky in that way that it's not just with a professor where it's like you have an office hour for 15 minutes and like that's that, but you have the opportunity to also speak about things in a bit more of an informal way as well. So I think also just try and go into it and enjoy the process.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm sure like everyone that's online will have hopefully found that really informative. I feel like the key takeaways here, sort of be honest. That would obviously help to manage expectations from both parties. Be open as well. So, Yal had a mentor that was specifically in fine arts, and that may not have been a perfect match to some people, but actually ended up being a great match. I find too often students, especially students, have a very specific idea in terms of what they want in a mentor. But by being ultra prescriptive, you end up overlooking a potentially great mentor that may not be exactly what you want on paper, but actually when it comes to their experience and their background, they have a wealth of experience and insights that and knowledge that actually would be really like suitable to you. So if there's a takeaway as well to add to the great things that our mentors and mentee have shared this evening, is to try and keep an open mind when it comes to mentoring. Nothing has to be perfect to be meaningful and for it to be valuable and mutually beneficial as well. So that's what I would sort of put out for that for now. I'm looking at the time and I think we are coming into Q&A. We haven't any questions. Okay, that's fine. So I guess as far as questions goes, I'll probably kick off with one I'd be intrigued to know about. Let's start off with Tamana. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time, would you have done anything differently if you were a student, as far as, for example, like the mentoring opportunities we now have, the events and networking events that we have? Would you be more proactive? Is there anything that you wish you did when you were a student, knowing what you know now?
Yes, definitely. Like I said initially, I didn't make use of any of the opportunities. Well, not most of the opportunities. So I think if I had the chance to go back, I would definitely have made use of the networking events that King's has in place. And also, I think just reaching out to people who have been, who are alumni or who are in the roles that I was looking to get into. I don't think I made use of those. So I would have definitely done that because I think like I mentioned, I was only with King's for a year because I was doing a master's degree. And I personally thought at the time that I had to use all of that time to just apply for jobs by myself and to get good grades at King's. But actually, I didn't realize that there was this whole support system that was sitting outside me, whether that was, in terms of making use of the career center and getting someone to have a look at my CV, or just reaching out to people who are recent graduates who are, also looking for jobs. I think I didn't do all of that very proactively. So yes, I would definitely go back and change all of that because I think it really, really helps.
Great, thanks, Tamana. Nevin, do you have anything to add to that? Was there anything that you wish, when you were a math student, that you wish that you did when you were at King's? I mean, there probably weren't the same opportunities, but if you were a student now, would you be making the most of it? Would you be engaging with any of that?
Definitely. I mean, not to add to what Tamara said, but for me, it's, you guys have all connected with the social media, so you can connect on LinkedIn, you can connect on all of these platforms and make the most of it. So certainly, I think you've got all the information at your fingertips in terms of reaching out to people, making the most of your careers department, your alumni volunteering, your mentoring. I think it's very beneficial, and beyond that, I would definitely have made more chance because, of course, it helps widen your network, because especially when you're a student, your cohort is pretty much student based, and the chance to really say, oh, okay, I've had the chance to network or be mentored by someone, whether it's in your industry that you want to get into or not, because you could use that opportunity to say, okay, actually that industry is not for me, or actually I really like the industry, I'd really like to pursue it, can I find out more? And there's only so much you can read from these on the internet or the company internet page and so on. They'll only tell you what they want to tell in a way. So it's really good to get these sort of inside knowledge if you can, or just when you build up with your stakeholders to understand what's best.
Thanks, Nevin. That's great. It's a valid point. Some students don't even think that far ahead. I mean, it's really worthwhile thinking that while you are a student, knowing that there are alumni out there that are currently actively working in different industries with all these different experiences, now is really prime time to be asking questions, getting insights, and then almost by trial and error, once you start to speak to these different people, it helps to give you a picture of whether something is right for you or not. You might be dead set on working in consulting, but as Tamana rightly put, that consulting could, it can cover a broad range of things. So yeah, I appreciate that. Everyone that's online, as we are in Q&A at the moment, feel free to share questions in the Q&A section on Teams. This is a very unique opportunity to be able to share, ask questions as well. I believe we have had a question in so far from someone. So I'm going to put this out to, well, I think this could apply to you all. I think one says that what year is it best to receive mentoring? Is it the last year of uni or earlier? I imagine that's coming from an undergrad student. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, Jarl, I know you've finished now at King's. Did you feel that that was the right time for you in your final year of your degree to get mentoring support, or do you wish you'd had that support earlier on?
To be honest, I don't think it would have made a huge difference to me. I think, like, in a way, the earlier you get these experiences, the better. And I guess that way you can, if you start in first year, you can get them again in second year and third year, and if in a lucky situation, and then widen your network even more. I think there's definitely you're not like impacted, there's no disadvantage if you start in third year and you don't start in first year. But if you know about this in first year, then there's no need to wait till third year to get this experience.
That's great, thank you. Right, okay, I've got another question in. Is mentoring just for students or alumni? So just to clarify, as I pointed out in the slides earlier, our leadership mentoring program, that is open currently to undergrads and postgrads. And then we do have Let's Chat, which is a one-off mentoring initiative, which we're trying to facilitate more on our King's Connect platform. But that's also not just open to students, but also alumni as well. Recent grads are part of the alumni community. So that's that. We are hoping to do more in future for alumni, but that's something that's in the works currently. But please do make the most of King's Connect as a platform. If you're on there, make the most of it. There is a directory there. As I mentioned earlier, you can filter by industry, subject of study. We do have more than 32,000 users at the moment, and it's a unique platform in the sense it's not just open to alumni, but also staff and students. So it's a really nice platform for you to make the most of and to actually engage with each other. Not all universities in the UK have this type of platform. So in that sense, it makes perfect sense to make use of it while you have it. Right. Okay, there's another question. Right, I think this is targeted at mentors. So Nevin and Tamana, do you have certain expectations for us mentees? Skills to be gained at the end of the mentoring program, for example? That's an interesting one. Tamana, would you like to kick off? So do you have certain expectations for mentees? Skills to be gained at the end of the mentoring program, for example?
I think we as mentors would only expect you to get to the point you would want to get to. So it's completely driven by what you want to get out of the mentoring relationship. So for example, if like one of my mentees came to me because she firstly wanted to figure out the industry that I work in and which industries she would be interested in working in, and then once she figures that out, she wanted to get some help with applying to roles in those specific industries. So as a mentor, my expectation both for her and for myself were to be able to guide her towards getting to that point where she is comfortable in A, understanding where she wants to work, and B, being able to apply for those specific roles. So really it's just driven by you. I don't think we have any real expectations when it comes to that. I think the only thing that would be expected, like I mentioned earlier, was just having specific goals in mind in terms of what you want to achieve and just being open and honest with us about what those are. really.
That's great. Thanks, Tamana. And it's a really valid point. Surely as a mentor, you'd only want what's best for the mentee. But it's getting down to the core of it. As a mentee, you really need to be the driving force in any sort of mentoring partnership. The onus falls on you to actually keep the momentum going, to be on it, to be proactive. I think certain students can mistake for like the mentor to take the lead on everything, but that's not really how you get the most out of mentoring. In a partnership, the expectation is that you are responsible and accountable for yourself. A mentor is there to support you and guide you and help you get from A to B, but ultimately it falls down to you. So it's worth keeping that in mind when you do get into a mentoring partnership as well. I'm getting more questions coming in, so I'll move this to Nevin. Are mentors comfortable to help with interview practice? Now, Nevin, having attended a number of King's Connect mentoring meetups, how would you respond to that? I imagine yes.
I'd say definitely. So there's a range of interview experience that you can get from King. So of course, attending these regular mentoring meetups, they have lots of sessions where you can have CV reviews. One of the stations is interview practice. So you can come up to us and you can practice your interview technique. It's simply a chance to really understand what your interview technique is and how you really present yourself, because ultimately at the end of the day, the interviewer is not out there to get you. They're simply there just to see if you're the right fit for the role. And when you're doing an interview, it's a two-way street. Either the company's there to find out whether you're the right fit for the role, but also it's up to you to think, well, actually, is that company right for me? And it's really a two-way street. So in the short answer, yes, formally you can do this via mentoring meetups. As I alluded to earlier, in my specific mentoring partnership, we did dedicate some sessions to have mock interviews as well. And she found it very helpful. So again, it's being to Taman's point, it's about being clear about what you want to get out of it. So what are your goals, having those SMART goals, and really holding yourself to account to say, okay, if I want a mock interview session in a future mentoring session, how do I go about doing that, and how do I drive that going forwards?
That's great. Thank you, Nevin. Appreciate that. I appreciate some of you maybe the prospect of having a mock interview might be quite scary, but rest assured that it's very much a safe space. Our alumni only want you to succeed. And you only get better by practicing. So if you don't start, you won't get an opportunity to get that constructive feedback to become more confident. Again, this is a really unique opportunity as well to get industry-specific guidance when it comes to the interview process, because different companies, different industries have different processes. So again, make the most of it. We recently had a King's Connect mentoring meetup not long ago, but we hope to run another one, hopefully in the spring next year. If you want to find out more about that, keep an eye on King's Connect, because that's where we'll be posting updates for that. Okay, right. I have one question for, I guess this falls to Yael now. Let's reword it again. Oh, it's okay. So there was a question. It doesn't seem to. It was there originally, but I'm going to ask it anyway to Yael. When it comes to thanking your mentor, Yael, what have you done for Patrick, or what do you feel has been appropriate when it comes to showing thanks or appreciation to a mentor for the time and effort they've spent supporting you?
So after every meeting I had with Patrick, I sent an email to express my thank you and like appreciation for his time and like the value I got out of it. And I think it's important when sending a thank you to not just send a generic like, oh, thank you for your time, but instead to say like what specifically you enjoyed from the meeting and what you took out from it, to show that like you really mean what you're saying. And I mean, it's the least you can do when you're sort of benefiting and they don't really, in a way, I guess, get that same value in return. So it's the least you can do to show your appreciation for them giving your time, their like valuable time. Yes, I would say like giving like a very like, I mean, while you're in the meeting to really engage, and then after the like while the meeting's ending to really like say thank you and how much you appreciate, and then to just follow up with an email with indeed like saying it like a specifically like why like what was good about it.
That's great. Thank you, Elle. And just to add some, again, there's no, I guess, right or specific way to thank a mentor. Some mentees like to thank privately. Others are happy to share or boast about it on LinkedIn. Some mentees have gone to the extent of writing a recommendation for their mentor on their LinkedIn profile. That doesn't mean to say you have to do all of that. It's very much down to you and what you feel you're comfortable with. To showcase that thanks. And at the end of the day, I do think that one of the biggest ways to really, I think, thank your mentors to actually show how engaged you are. You show up to every mentoring session prepared. That I think that really, well, correct me if I'm wrong, Tamana and Evan, but I'd like to think that's a great way of showing thanks, is you're respecting the mentor's time, you're coming in prepared, and you're genuinely trying to make a change and to make things better for yourself. And I'd like to think that's a good, if there's anything to add, Nevin and Tamana, feel free to add in, but I'd like to think that's a good way to showcase, for a mentee to showcase their thanks and gratitude to a mentor, is to actually show up and to be present and actively engage.
I'd have to agree with that, Natalie. I think so. We as mentors, sign up to be mentors because we want to help and support. So just, if we see that we are able to do it and that you are engaging with us, I think that in itself is thanks, if I'm being honest.
That's great. Thanks, Tamana. Nevin, do you have anything else to add to that, or does it very much echo what Tamana shared there?
It echoes what Yao and Tamana said. I think both a gesture of saying thanks via email or in the moment feedback is valued by anyone. That's really helpful, and you can it's really keeps the the mentoring partnership keep going. But also add to what Tamana said about being engaged. It's really important to come prepared to these meetings, to really show up, to be enthusiastic, to have an end game in sight. So to really be clear about what you're expecting from the mentoring partnership, and going from that. So just engagement and responding to as you would treat your fellow students. So when you enter the world of work, you'll be expected to these are common behaviors, professional behaviors. So it's a great way of developing that professional capacity before you join the working world.
That's great. Thank you, Nevin, for that. Right, I think we are slowly coming to the end. I've got another question here, but I feel like that really is dependent. How many times should you meet your mentor, and how long should a meeting be? I mean, it would be great to hear from Tamana and Nevin on this, but I imagine it's very much dependent on if it's prescribed to a specific program, like the leadership program, or if it's a one-off conversation, like at the King's Connect Mentoring Meetup, or as part of a Let's Chat one-off chat initiative. I imagine that would then influence how long you would have, how many sessions and how many goals you'd set with that mentee. So I'm not sure if there's anything to add to that, but I imagine the answer to that would be it's dependent on whether it's part of a formal program, whether it's part of an event, or another initiative. If you're doing it out of the confines of a specific program, like you're reaching out to someone on the King's Connect platform, for example, it would then just be dependent, I imagine, on a mentor's time and capacity and availability. And this is a really important note for anyone on this call now, is mentors, some mentors would love to help but have limited capacity. So going back to managing expectations, I think it's also important to be mindful of a mentor's capacity. They are working professionals. They have deadlines and lives outside of work. So trying to ensure that you are respectful of their time and not taking too much of their time, I think, is important. So potentially not 3-hour long mentoring sessions. I'm not sure if Nevin or Timon have done either of those, but yes, I imagine it would be very much dependent to what it is that you're getting involved with, and even outside of the confines of, again, as I said, you have to have that honest conversation with a potential mentor to then discover, to manage expectations, to set timelines and get a sense for how long you've got together, and how much they can realistically support you in that time frame. But yes, as much as mentors would love to help, they may not have as much time to give as you would like. So it's important to just keep that in mind as well. But again, I'm not sure if either of you have had any issues with that from a mentee standpoint, where they've maybe asked too much of your time. No, I see a nod from Nevin, no for Tamana, which is great. Yes, now I guess if there's no additional questions, I imagine we can potentially draw this to a close. Thank you so much, Nevin, Tamana, and Yael, for joining us this evening. I hope everyone online, you found that insightful and useful. The key takeaway here is just to make the most. There's opportunities available here at King's, and you just have to make the most of it, and try to make time for it as well if you can. I appreciate you're here to do your studies, but equally, if you can make any time and capacity to get involved with any of the mentoring initiatives that we have available at King's, that will hopefully set you up for success beyond King's, and even after you graduate. Remember that you can still be part of these initiatives and opportunities and events as well. So just continue to show up and to be involved, because that's the only way you're going to get to where you want, is to really connect and engage with the thriving global alumni community that we have here at King's. It's one of the best alumni communities I know of, so it would do you some good to get involved. Our alumni are out there willing and waiting to help, so don't be afraid to ask for help, is the end of is what I'll end on note-wise. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, you're welcome to drop us a line, but we will be emailing you all with a recording of this session today. But thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope you found that useful. Thank you, Nevin. Thank you, Tamana. Thank you, Yael. And on that note, we've ended like bang on 6:30. So I hope you have a pleasant rest of your evening. Take care, everyone, and hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.